Good evening, friends. Welcome to another edition of Crime Time with DutyRon, a retired New York City police detective with 20 plus years. I'm wearing my retired shirt tonight. If you like all things true crime related from a police perspective, hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you will get all things DutyRon when I go live or when I upload another video. Tonight I have a super special guest. He is a expert, one of the four, like one of the best in the world. Dan Ribacoff from the Steve Wilkos show. He was kind enough to take out a moment of his busy schedule and come on with us live tonight to talk about polygraphs, the examination, what it takes to do it, what goes on when it is conducted, and what type of subjects take polygraphs. And we're going to talk everything polygraph. So if you like to find out, if you want to find out the ins and outs of polygraphing and the what goes on behind the scenes and during and after, stick around here. Again, I'd like to say a special thank you to my Patreon supporters, the channel members, and all of the folks who positively interact in all of these live streams. The folks who watch the replay views, the people who leave me comments down below. You guys are instrumental in making this a great community. We're going to break down the interview of Don and Candus Wells. So we're going to watch a little bit of an early interview. Most of you have seen it, but Dan has watched this and is going to give us his analysis at the end of it. So if you're interested in things of that nature, in regards to the Summer Wells case, we all want to get to the bottom of what happened to Summer Wells. We want to find out, are these parents being truthful with us? Is there some deception? And we all have our opinions, right? We all have our opinions in regards to whether they're being truthful, whether they're giving us some truth, whether they're being complete liars to us. We're going to have an expert look at it tonight, and we may get some answers. So please stick around and make sure you share this live stream. So without further ado, I'm going to play Candus and Don's interview, and we'll come back with Dan Ribacoff right after this.
I know she didn't walk away from this property by herself or off this yard by her swing. I feel in my heart that somebody has came up here and took her, has lured her away from here. Me and my mother and her were planting flowers. And we went in after we got done washing our hands, and she got a piece of candy from Grandma. And she wanted to go back over and see her brothers. And I said, okay. And I walked her all the way over to the porch. And I watched her walk into the kitchen where the boys were watching TV. And I told the boys, I said, watch Summer. I'll be back. And within 2 minutes, I came back. And I asked the boys where their sister was. And they said, she went downstairs, Mom, to play with her toys in the playroom. I said, okay. And I yelled downstairs for her a couple times. And I didn't get no answer, which was unusual because usually she always answers me. And so I went down there to check, and she was nowhere in sight. She was just gone. I don't go on walks around here or runs because I'm scared of the bears and snakes and even the coyotes that are around here. Well, whoever has my daughter, I pray and hope that they have not harmed her and they bring her back to us safe and sound.
Go to the FBI, the police, and clear it up. I mean, I don't know. It seems kind of elusive.
It's really strange that I've never seen this truck and I've never heard of it until just recently. But I wish they would come forward and explain themselves. And if you're not a suspect, at least come forward and say what you've seen. She was a tomboy. I shaved my head. She wanted to have her head shaved like me and the boys did.
She tried to shave her head.
She tried
in
to
the
shave her
back
head
and make it. I think you can see it in some of the pictures, and it was getting out of control. So we decided to shave her head off and let it grow back long, and she shaved her head so she wouldn't feel bad. and but it didn't bother her at this point. Well, I knew right away that she was abducted. I knew that right away, and that's what I told them from the beginning. But they have to go through their, I forget the word.
Investigation.
They have to do one step at a time, I guess. But I'm sorry that they had to spend so many man hours in these woods and everything. I've seen them limping and everything else, and I feel for them. But I just wish there was a way that neighbors could search neighbors' houses, and then if they're not willing, get a search warrant or something. But there's just no way you can search every single house, in the eastern United States or whatever. But I wish there was a way. Just thankful for the person or persons that's doing that, out of love, trying to get information and trying to get her found. We thank them from the bottom of our hearts.
It means a lot.
And we thank everybody who's trying so hard and praying so hard. And she's an awesome young lady, and we just want her back. But, there's always going to be haters, and it's always going to be that way in this world. And we just want to focus on the good friends and Christian people that are trying to help us and praying for us and praying for Summer. And we thank them from the bottom of our hearts. And that's the kind of people we try to relate with and socialize with. So we don't know anything about, no red truck, or we hardly know many of our neighbors. I mean, because we just try to be around good people. I mean, and we do have good people in this area. We found out since this has all happened. We got some real good neighbors and good folks everywhere. But
the most important thing is to bring Summer home safe. I'm sorry that you feel this way about us, but we love our children with everything we have. We've never went without, thanks to Summer's daddy and my husband. He's always provided for us and has worked as much as he could and can and still is. And I'm sorry that you guys feel that way, but that's my baby, and nobody would ever treat her like that as long as I was around. Ever.
She loves to dance. She would always want me. She says, "Daddy, hold my hand so I can twirl." And she would just like to twirl and twirl and twirl till my arm got tired. But I put out there that one of Summer's favorite songs was Godzilla, and they say, and they're jumping all over me about past tense was, well, I'm sorry about that. It's just.
She also liked the song by New Breed. It was called House. My House. She sung that a lot of times when I play it on the TV. She loved to dance.
She liked to think of herself as a princess, and and all that, like all young girls do. And
she loved Frozen. She loved to be that Elsa, and
I think she really loved to be in church because she felt a lot of love there. And I think you can't explain what that love is, but you feel it and you know it, when you're young. And she felt that there, and she loved everybody in that church, or she loves everybody in that church. I should rephrase that because they'll tear that apart as past tense, and I apologize again for that. I hope she gets to come home, and I hope she gets to be with our church family again.
Our best friend in that church was Robin. She loved her to death.
Yeah, she looked up to women that were.
She come to that church, she went looking for Robin. That was her favorite person.
Any woman that was professional, that
was pretty, beautiful.
She looked up to those kind of women. She, they were the word I'm looking for, I can't think of it, but she looked up to them. She'd give them a run for their money every day. She'd give them a run for their money. And there was times, we'd we'd be, you know, at our boys like, don't do this and don't do that. And next thing you know, a stick would come up and just whop them, you know, and it'd be like, Summer, don't do that. You
Summer
know?
was the boss of the family.
She's
She,
typical girl.
when they get out of line, she'd put them in line.
She'd do her best.
She loved to play in the mud and the water and swing on her swing and enjoy dirt.
When I run the lawnmower around, she would run behind me. When the boys run their bikes around, she as fast.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I think we've heard enough of this hogwash. And I call it hogwash only because I've heard it so many times. My next guest, without further ado, has been in the business almost 40 years. He is an unbelievably experienced polygraph technician. Dan Ribacoff is a consummate professional. He has his own company, In-Depth Polygraphs. He's been doing this for almost 40 years. Now, I'll let him correct me if I'm wrong. Well, welcome into the live stream. Thank you so much for joining. Dan, it's an honor to have you here. My community and all of my folks, thank you tremendously for spending some time with us.
Thank you, Ron. A privilege to be here with you, my friend.
Now, back in April, you and I got together thanks to Timmy Acosta. He's a great friend of ours. We were talking about Trezell and Jacqueline West over in California City. We're talking about two boys missing still to this day, 7 months later. They're unaccounted for. You did an unbelievable job by coming on board and analyzing their masked up interview. Talk a little bit first before we get into this about some of your experience and what you have done in your community there in the polygraph field.
Sure. So I'm a certified advanced polygraph examiner and advanced sex offender polygraph examiner. I'm also a private investigator, licensed private investigator.
He seemed to have frozen. I'm going to hope that he comes back and gets, I don't know if that is on his end or what's going on, but we seem to have lost him temporarily. Thank you, Mandy. I'm hoping that he corrects whatever's going on his end. It sounds like a Wi-Fi issue because he kind of froze up on me. Mandy, thank you for the super love. Thank you to, let me thank a few other people. Lady D, thank you for the $50 super sticker. Thank you to Mandy Clevenger for the $10 super chat. Much appreciated. I'm hoping that Dan is unfrozen. He is still frozen. So I'm hoping that he could leave and then come on back in. He's back. All right. We got you back, brother.
Gotcha. Sorry.
We didn't hear anything of what you said. So if you could just introduce yourself to the audience and let them know what you do.
Sure. So for the past 31 years, I've been a private investigator and a polygraph examiner. I'm an advanced certified polygraph examiner. I'm a police polygraph examiner. I do the polygraphs here in New York for the MTA, the Metropolitan Transportation Authority Police Department. So it's an excellent tool that I utilize in my investigations, and would be an ideal thing to have in this particular case, where the parents need to be ruled out as suspects.
Yes, and also what I'd like to note too is, and I know you don't like to toot your own horn, Dan, but I'm going to do it for you. You're one of the top polygraph examiners in the world, and that is in writing. I read about it. I saw that you have conducted polygraphs on folks like Al Roker and Kevin Hart. You've been around the block. How many of these things have you conducted, and how accurate are they?
Sure. So I've done over 15,000 polygraphs. I stopped counting at 15,000, so it's probably closer to 17 or 18,000 now. The polygraph has an accuracy of up to 99.4% accuracy. That's according to the American Polygraph Association's metadata analysis that they've done on the various formats of polygraph. So polygraphs can be anywhere from 80 to 99.4% accurate, depending on the technique or the test that's administered. There are various types of tests in polygraphs for various types of situations, and the accuracy varies.
Yes. And another thing too that a lot of people ask, and these are questions asked continually, how accurate is a polygraph if the subject is either on drugs or drinking or on prescription medication? Can you just talk a little bit about that? Because it ties into these two folks.
Sure. So prescription medications are determined by an interview beforehand. We always do a pre-test interview where we're going to ask them about medical conditions, psychiatric or psychological conditions, as well as what medicines they're on to see if there's anything that is affecting. Usually heavy opiates, things along those lines would affect the tracings that we would receive, yielding the polygraph inconclusive. You wouldn't pass, you wouldn't fail, you just would be not testable. Alcohol, you would have to come in significantly impaired to once again come up with an inconclusive. Illegal drugs, same thing. You would have to be, showing severe signs of impairment for the polygraph to be inconclusive. So we analyze and we interview the subjects beforehand to get a better idea as to what their physiological state is.
Excellent. So there is a lot of pre and post work that you do with these polygraphs, correct?
Yeah, correct. The average polygraph test takes between an hour and a half to 3 hours, sometimes even 4 hours for serious polygraph issues that need to be addressed. There's a significant pre-test interview. On the show that I work on, the Steve Wilkos show, a lot of the pre-test interview is done by the producers. So that cuts down the time that I need to interview the person because they've already been interviewed by the producer. So it's a much shorter test on the show. But when I test privately, I usually have to go over the entire story with the examinee before the polygraph test is administered.
I'm going to play a short little clip from Steve's show. You have this on your website. So I played this the last time you joined. It gives everybody a good idea of what you do. And it's titled Ask Dan Anything. And this is a small clip from Steve's show. If you don't mind, I'd like to play that so the audience knows about some of the questions, because this covers a lot of the results and how you come about to what you come up with after you test somebody. So if you don't mind, I'm going to play that quickly, and then we'll come right back and we'll start talking about Don and Candus, because I'm sure you have a lot to say.
Oh yeah, I do.
All right, and everybody, if you're new joining, please hit the subscribe button and stick around, because we're going to be talking about Don and Candus Wells right as we come back. So I am going to go full screen with this, and we're going to play this.
Make sure they really understand why we do these tests, how they're conducted. But since we are covering this right now, if anybody in the audience has a question about lie detector tests, now would be a good time to ask it if you do have a question.
Hello.
Hi.
How much is it more important to look at the face and body reaction other than the math algorithm? Is that just as important or less?
Very good question. Very, very good question. Today, polygraph is not just chart analysis, although that's a bulk of it. As I've come up and discussed previously, Steve, people leak deception. So from the time a person comes into the polygraph suite until the time that they leave, I run a credibility assessment test on everything they do, what they say, what they don't say, their body language, their facial expressions, latency and hesitancy, repeating a question, because people do leak deception. Usually before I test a guest, Steve, or any examinee, I know whether they're going to fail this polygraph test or not.
Mike McDermott has a question.
Hi, Steve. Love the show. Dan, my question is, every time you always hear about people who try to defeat the test, through manual means, putting a tack in their shoe, whatever you could think of, biting your tongue, whatever they hear from YouTube. Does that register also in the brain that you're biting, you're hurting yourself, you're creating diversion manually?
Good question. So what happens is the internet is full of information. It's also full of misinformation.
Fake book.
If you Google on the internet polygraphs, first thing pops up is how to beat a polygraph. Well, it's like trying to beat a blood test. It's a physiological test, and you cannot control what I test. I test what part of your brain you use. So when you tell the truth, you use your memory. Your brain doesn't work very hard. When you lie, you use your imagination, and your brain works much harder. So as Mike said, people try to do things and influence the polygraph charts. Causing pain causes a reaction. Biting your tongue causes a reaction. What you want to have in a polygraph is no reaction. So it's really counterproductive. Plus, I also see that there are irregular movements to the pens on the graphs. And I know from doing approximately 12,000 polygraph tests in my career that what you're doing is not natural. There's only one reason to try to beat a polygraph. You're lying, exactly. So none of it works.
With the lie detector test, with all these children that are being injured, physically abused and whatnot, do y'all use them on the children?
We don't use them on children under the age of, some examiners do 12, some do 14, because the thought is, and I agree with it, is that you don't want to re-victimize the child by saying, I don't believe you. So what we do is we test the person who's being accused, the perpetrator. And it's always better to do that, because I do get a lot of calls in my private business of, will you test my child? She's saying that I've been molested, that I've been accused. I said, no. I said, I'm going to test the perpetrator. Well, he won't take one. I go, there's your answer.
Yeah. I really want to thank Dan. Dan's been with.
That's a great example of polygraphs. Dan, let me just unmute you real quick. I know that was from way in the past. Again, it was just such a chock full of information for my viewers, and I see everybody is going ooh and ah, and how can I get my husband to come on the Steve Wilkos show? We may have an in with Dan Ribacoff here. He may be able to get some of you guys in there. So send me a message on DutyRon.com if you may have an idea for a show. I will forward it to Dan, and Dan will forward it off to. That was the producer that came on there, right? Wasn't he one of the?
No, he's actually one of the security guards. Mike was Steve's partner when he was a Chicago cop, and they would fly him in to do security. And Mike just recently retired from the Chicago PD.
Excellent. Maybe I got a job on the set in the future. Maybe I can come out to Connecticut and work. I want to expand with you quickly, Dan, about the youth. We have a young man who is involved. Probably indirectly, he was at the watering hole the day that Summer went missing. He's a 15-year-old boy. Is that right at the cusp for a polygraph? Would his parents have to okay it, or is he old enough where he can give consent? Could you talk to the viewers about a 15-year-old?
Sure. So a 15-year-old is testable as long as he doesn't have learning disabilities or any significant psychiatric or psychological issues. Maturity is a big part of it. You have to be able to engage him, speak with him, conduct the interview, and conduct the polygraph test. But 15 is certainly testable. His parents would have to consent because he is a minor. Under the age of 18, do need parental consent to conduct the polygraph.
Now, I have a question that is user-generated. It came in on the website. One of the users asked, Ron, can you ask Dan, does the if you're doing a criminal poly, you said you do for Queens Criminal Superior Manhattan Court. If you're doing something in regards to the court, do they get Mirandaized, or is that something that's not given to them?
No, we're private polygraph examiners, so we don't have to give them Miranda. If the police was doing it, as you know, Ron, from being a police officer, a detective in NYPD, you have the major case squad, and the major case squad has a couple of polygraph examiners that would probably have to give them the Miranda rights.
Yes, I knew the answer to that question, but I have you here, so I might as well make you work. So thank you for that, Dan. Another quick question is, now when folks are taking the polygraph test, a lot of people want to know how the values are done. If you could explain that in layman's term, is it a pass? Is it a fail? Is it inconclusive? And how do you come to that? I saw a video of you speaking about that. Could you be able to elaborate?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So each test has different cut scores. Cut scores means you have to be this high to pass, this low to fail, and anything in between would be inconclusive. So if we talk about a single issue 3-question test, which would be, did you kill John? Regarding John, did you kill him? Were you the person that killed John? It's really the same question, just asked 3 different ways. It's called a single issue test. It's the most accurate polygraph test. The cut scores for that test would be +6 or higher to have a score of no deception indicated, and -6 or lower to have a score of deception indicated. In polygraphs, we don't say pass fail, we say deception or no deception indicated. So if you were a 0, you would be inconclusive because you didn't hit the cut scores. If you were a -4 or a +4, you would still be inconclusive. You would have to be +6 or higher, -6 or lower to get a score of deception or no deception indicated.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that. Again, a lot of people have misconceptions because of fake book. I like to call Facebook fake book sometimes, because it's always good for misinformation. Now, don't get me wrong. There's sometimes good information on Facebook if it's coming from somebody who has knowledge on what they're speaking of. But unfortunately, a lot of people talk about, polygraphs are bullcrap. They get a lot of innocent people in trouble. Talk about the 20-state situation where it is admissible. I mean, I don't need you to go through all the 20 states, but it is in fact admissible, the results of polygraphs in criminal cases in 20 states across the United States. Isn't that true?
Right, that's correct. I believe it's 19 states, but or maybe 20 now. But polygraphs are admissible. I'm here in New York as you are, and polygraphs do have admissibility in the courts in New York for motions to dismiss in the interest of justice and in post-conviction appeals for 40 motions. Recently, I was able to assist in getting somebody out of prison who had spent 27 years in prison for a crime that they did not commit, a homicide, and through the polygraph and other investigative means that the district attorney undertook, his conviction was overturned and he was freed.
Wow.
His name is Valentino Dixon, a really nice gentleman. So the polygraph does have admissibility in court. It has admissibility in some federal circuits as well as immigration court. And really the issue is not reliability, because polygraphs are used by the district attorney's offices. They're used by the Department of Justice. They're used by the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, most police departments. And it's used all over the world, not only in the United States. So the issue really becomes a trial by instrumentation versus a trial by a jury of your peers.
Right.
So the court system is supposed to be a trial by a jury of your peers. And if I say to you, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Ron failed a polygraph for robbing the bank, the jury goes, okay, he's guilty. So we take away the jury's power.
Right.
And Clarence Thomas from the United States Supreme Court said the jury is the lie detector. You're supposed to say, well, you don't look like a bank robber, you don't sound like a bank robber, they don't have your DNA like on CSI Miami, you're not a bank robber. So when I say, he failed a polygraph test for robbing the bank, we've already influenced the jury. So that's really the main reason why they do not like to use them in court, because it would be trial by instrumentation versus trial by a jury of your peers.
So it's the amendment rights that would be infringed upon if using a polygraph, correct?
Correct. We would be infringing on your right to a trial by a jury of your peer.
Thank you. Again, great information that a lot of folks outside the country, outside the United States, might not be privy to, and a lot of people inside the United States might not be privy to that information. So thank you for clearing that up. All right, let's get into the meat and potatoes of this, because I promised you 30 minutes and we're almost there. talk to me and the audience about what you saw in the Candus and Don Wells interview, the initial one that I just showed, and then the one that was conducted by Chris McDonough out by the lake.
Sure. Perfect. So I've taken some notes just to make sure, because there was quite a bit. One of the first things that everybody was probably noticing was the unusual affect. The fact that they were very stoic, very calm, talking about the daughter. There was no tears, there was no emotion. And if your 5-year-old daughter disappeared a couple of days ago, one would expect that people would have some emotionality. So the unusual affect, as we call it in credibility assessment, was something that stood right out. Another thing that stood right out is the past tense, the utilization of past tense. And the husband, Don, was actually aware of it. Even though he tried to correct himself several times, he kept going back to the past tense of she would like this, she would like that, instead of she likes this, she likes that. So that was a telltale sign right there. They were also very sure that she was abducted. Meanwhile, the mother kept saying that she was scared of the wildlife in the area, especially the bears. How do they know that a bear didn't come and eat the child? How are they so sure that the child was abducted? They seem to be both very steadfast in pointing the police in that direction, which is what we call in credibility assessment an indicator. An indicator is where you try to point the person or the investigator in a particular direction to try to point it away from you. So here, saying she was abducted, go look for an abductor. Versus saying, well, we don't know what happened to her. Perhaps a bear ate her. Perhaps she was abducted. They were very certain that the child was abducted. So I'm just going to put my glasses on here for a moment. You may get a little bit of a reflection. There was a change in the way that they referred to the child. They referred to her as she. They referred to her as Summer. They referred to her as their sister, meaning the boy's sister. So there was some depersonalization by the father. And generally, when you've done something bad to somebody, you try to take steps away from that to depersonalize the relationship with that particular person. The circumstances, let's look at the circumstances. The circumstances are highly unusual, where in such a remote area, a child would just vanish within seconds without really leaving any trace. When the parents were being interviewed, they were going off on tangents. They were over-explaining. They were providing too much unimportant information, talking about her favorite songs and the fact that she liked to dance, and basically just sort of filling time and trying to give us a lot of BS. The father was licking his lips. If you noticed, a couple of times he did this. Licking the lips is a sign of deception as well. In the second interview, if you want me to get into that, or you want me to stop here for a moment, I have something.
I wanted to stop and just to add a couple of things into the first interview. Everything that you mentioned, we've all spoken about, but everybody was unsure of it because nobody's an expert in deception. And what I wanted to ask you as well, in addition to your polygraph experience, you are also qualified in deception, correct?
Correct, yes. The forensic interviewing is a big part of polygraph, because it's not only the charts, but as I had mentioned on the episode, on the little segment there with Steve Wilkos, we utilize what's known as the global approach. So everything you do, everything you say, how you act, what you don't say, is all analyzed, and that becomes part of the global approach to whether or not you're being credible or you're obviously lying. So yeah, with the interviews, generally before I polygraph somebody, I know whether or not they're going to fail.
Just by the pre-interview and the way the person is acting when you're interviewing them for the setup, for the polygraph, correct?
Correct. Yes, sir.
Yeah. A lot of folks were asking in the chat because I'm trying to pay attention to some of the chat. Some of the folks are saying he's saying everything that I thought of, but I just didn't say because I wasn't educated on it. So these are good things that you point out. Many other behavioral panel. There's a big channel here on YouTube. It's a group of guys from all different law enforcement, and they've broken down these interviews, and they've had different opinions. And I wanted you to talk about the facts of no two polygraph examiners, no two behavioral analysis men or women are going to come to the exact same conclusion on interviews like this. What I'm saying is no two people see things exactly the same, and what you might pick up on, somebody else might not pick up on. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, I mean, generally, most examiners or most deception people will agree on something that's very obvious. Sometimes it's not as obvious, and you do need to pick up the little nuances. But once again, a deception or no deception score, whether it be on a polygraph or during a forensic interview, is all based upon the examiner's opinion. So it's my opinion that you are being deceptive. It's my opinion. And you can go to a doctor and get different opinions as well. Some may say you have arthritis, some may say you have gout. They need to run certain tests, but basically a deception or no deception score is an opinion, and opinions vary from examiner to examiner.
And that's why we go for second opinions. And that is why also too, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dan, and I need you to correct me because I'm just going on assumptions here. And that is probably why a polygraph technician will make 2 and 3, and as you said, sometimes up to 5 tests to get it right, right?
Correct. We look at the total cumulative scores of the charts. The charts are scored numerically, as I mentioned before, and they should be quality controlled by other examiners to make sure that the opinion is correct. But that's why we collect enough data to be able to get up to the cut scores.
Excellent. And I want to say thank you to Police Off the Cuff for sending in a super chat. And Susan King says, does Dan Ribacoff believe Summer was abducted? We're going to that at the end. I'm not going to ask him that now, but I'm going to ask him that before we close. Steve Cologne, thank you for the $10 super chat. And again, Police Off the Cuff, thank you for those 2 super chats and super stickers. I appreciate that. Everybody go subscribe to Police Off the Cuff. He will be live after I am done here at 9 o'clock with Dave Rader, the director of the Midwest EquiSearch chapter in Ohio. He's going to have Dave Rader, who is a regular here on the show. He's going to be live with him tonight to talk about searching for Summer Wells with the dogs and what EquiSearch does and what they'll continue to do for missing children and missing folks across the country and across the world for that matter. Dan, again, this was quite a bit. I didn't let that whole interview play, and I know you're a thorough guy. I sent you some stuff yesterday, and then you told me, when I asked you, I said, I hope you got a chance to look it over. Dan's answer to me was, I watched all of it. So I appreciate that. I know that you're busy, but it is something that you need to do to come up with a conclusion or a thought. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct. In other words, you want to have as much information as you can to make an informed decision. So when you sent me over those several clips, I wanted to make sure I watched them from the beginning to the end.
I greatly appreciate that. And do you have anything more on the first video with her and Don? I know you covered quite a bit of points. Is there anything more that stuck out to you? Like was there any leading? Did it seem like he was cut? I saw him cut her off at least once or twice when she was talking. But then again, sometimes I cut my wife off too when she talks. But
right, yeah, he cut her off a couple of times. I didn't find that too significant. Just sometimes you have something that you want to add. But I think I covered pretty much all of the quote leakage. Potential leakage of deception in that first interview.
Okay. Let's jump into the second one. That was done just recently, and it was more lengthy, and it covered. It was done not by a news reporter. It was done by a retired homicide detective. So he had a little bit more experience in interviewing. What was your take on that second interview down by the lake? That lake,
Sure.
incidentally, was where she last was seen alive.
Right. So one thing that stood out, and if you've watched it and think back, they said that they went with grandma to go get a prescription filled, and they were told it was going to be about 30 minutes. So she said, oh, 30 minutes, might as well take her to go swimming. So they took her to the state park, and they let Summer go swimming, and Hunter, the other boy, ran off into the woods. Now, if you think back, the homicide detective asked, what was she wearing? And she said she was wearing a swimsuit. And she said that she had put the swimsuit on her. Well, the question that he didn't ask was, where did you put it on? Did you put it on in the car? Did you put it on in the home? From my take, it was put on in the home. So if you weren't planning on taking the child swimming and you were just planning on waiting for the prescription, and that was something that that sort of came up impromptu, then why did the child have a swimsuit on?
Very good. I didn't pick up on that, and that's something good to home in on. Was she again was she now being untruthful there, telling him that, well, we planned to go to the go swimming, or was it unplanned? You know, because the mom went to an emergency room, I guess to the hospital for something with her knee, and there was a prescription filled. And there was also a question of, nowadays Walgreens, they don't even take paper prescriptions, but maybe in East Tennessee they do that. I don't know. But by me, if I go to the doctor or if I go to the hospital, it's sent electronically. Right. So again, there's another thing. I want to just read this quick. Haley Denton sends in a question. Ron, what is Dan's thoughts about them saying she wanted to be like the boys in Kansas with the shaved head, and then she tried to shave her own head, and then Don said Kansas shaved her head afterwards? I saw a little bit of inconsistencies there with that story, and just like some of these other details of this have changed as it's gone along. And you have anything on that, Dan?
Yeah, it was a little peculiar. You know, the kids want to do stupid things and silly things. It just seemed that they were providing what's known as unimportant information during an interview, where they should have, you know, been more begging and pleading for the return of their child. They were almost eulogizing the child. The child, you know, liked this, the child liked that, the child enjoyed this, the child liked this song. So it seemed almost more like they were eulogizing the child than pleading with a news reporter to get the message out to have the child returned.
And to expand on that, Dan, in an interview, of course, I'm not going to show all the interviews his father did, but he spoke to a reporter on a phone and said something about, we'll see her in the resurrection. Like, he was telling this guy, my daughter's dead. He even went as far as saying somebody abducted her and brought her down into a dungeon. And what you didn't see and what I didn't show you is that Chris, after that interview at the lake, went back to the home, and the mother let him videotape all inside that house, and where the daughter slept, and the three kids, the three boys, the daughter, and the mother and father, was like a dungeon. You actually had to climb down stairs, like it was like one of those, you'd see a trap door open up, but there was no trap door. It was just a hole in the floor behind a table, and you'd have to go down steep steps. And there was a door that led out the back. But when he brought us into that home, it was the most creepy thing. And I've seen, you know me, I was a housing cop. So I was in public housing. So I've seen horror show project apartments that were dirty and that were just in disarray. But this was something out of a horror movie. There was no toys. She talked about that the summer went down to a playroom. This, in my view, and this is my opinion, it resembled a dungeon. And he made that reference. Right. Like somebody has her and is keeping her somewhere against her will in a dungeon. So, I mean, there's all of these things that he circles back to. But I'd like you to, you know, I don't want to take you off of your expanded view of this. If you could elaborate more on what your take was from that interview out at the lake.
Yeah, the interview at the lake once again, unusual affect. This time, the mother Candace was utilizing the proper tense. Obviously, they were aware of that, and they were aware that that was something that was being dissected, rightfully so. So she spoke in the proper tense, and she spoke methodically and carefully, and basically told the same story. But that little blurb with the bathing suit just didn't make sense. And in credibility assessment, we say if it doesn't make sense, it's generally not true. So there's something up with that fishing hole there, and their plans to go there or not go there. There was definitely something up with that.
Did you see anything that was stood out to you in regards to the story, or did she hold true to the storyline that was presented in that first interview with the news?
Yeah, she held fast with it. Grandma gave her some candy. She went to pick flowers with grandma and went back home. She said to the boys to watch her, and the boys said that she was downstairs. So it's not a very complex story to remember. But once again, the circumstances are bizarre, and the unusual affect was still present during that second interview.
Yeah. I'm gonna run quickly over to the chat and then we'll wrap it up. But overall, what's your take on these two with believability? Is this these statements, in your professional opinion, are they being truthful here, or are they not being truthful?
I believe that there is some deception in their statements. I don't see how we can rule them out as suspects due to all the aforementioned things that I had stated before, as well as the circumstances. So they certainly cannot be ruled out as suspects.
Yeah, and I, from the get-go, my detective's intuition and skills, or whatever you want to call it, I really did get a bad vibe from Don. I didn't show you the video that he made with his son. He was holding on to his son and he was patting him on the shoulder and kind of grabbing him. It looked like a very uncomfortable. It was only a minute and a half, but I got a bad vibe from him. And everything about this, I say, stinks. And again, parents that lose a 5-year-old daughter usually are out passing out flyers, screaming from the rooftops. They did none of the above. They stayed put. They didn't search for her. And in fact, they went on this campaign of just smearing everybody who was trying to help her, including Texas EquiSearch. So I just, to me, people are inside your town looking for your daughter from outside of your town. They didn't come out and say, hey, thanks a lot for coming out here. They stayed put. And again, people can argue that they're being questioned by everybody on the internet, but my time wouldn't be spent fighting with people on the internet. It would be fighting to find out where my daughter is.
Exactly.
I would not even give 1 minute. In fact, I don't even fight with internet people who say bad things about me. I ignore them. I just make it like it's white noise.
Right.
So I think that time that you spend trying to defend yourself or fight somebody, you can't get that time back. It's a waste of time. But in these parents' case, they're not demonstrating loving, caring parents. They're more concerned about fighting about what people think about them. And at the end of the day, people hate when I say at the end of the day, but I love to freaking say it. So you. I say at the end of it all, it's important that people understand that their first and foremost priority should be trying to find their daughter, and they're not doing that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and they're not doing it.
Correct.
Let me show you guys quickly Dan's website. You gave me permission to show this, so I'm going to show it real quick.
Thank you. This
is his professional website. I'm going to go full screen with it, but we're going to still be here. It's in-depth polygraphs. I want to scroll down. Yes, I'm going to scroll down, and on here we'll give a overview about Dan. This is just about his whole history on all of his certifications and what he has done. On the right here, you'll notice his affiliations: the American Polygraph Association, the National Polygraph Association, International Society of Polygraph Examiners, National Council of Investigative Security Specialists, ASTM International. Could you give us what that acronym is? ASTM International.
Sure. It's the basically it's the Society for Standards and Testing and Measurements. So they have an influence over polygraph as well. The American
Standards
Society for Testing Standards and Measurements.
Excellent. Thank you. Association for Associated Licensed Detectives of New York State, the British and European Polygraph Association, and the World Association of Detectives. There's a contact page down here, and all of his information is available. These are some of the shows that he's done, National Geographics. I actually showed that piece the last time you were live with me. The Wall Street Journal, Today in New York, Steve Wilkos show. And what is that? Glamour Magazine? What's that about?
Glamour Magazine.
You
They did a segment on honesty and polygraphs and so on and so forth. So I was in that segment.
Excellent. So there's a lot of stuff. He does drug testing, private investigation, background checks. You can hire him privately if you think your husband or your significant other is cheating, as long as you're in the New York metropolitan area. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, Dan.
Correct.
Yes. So this website is a chock full of information. If you go on the media section, it tells you about all of his media, all of the things that he's done, shows. They just come up one after the other, and there's some really great stuff on here. So if you want to educate yourself, I will link his website down below in the description here. Again, I think that this was interesting, to say the least. It was educational. I always appreciate somebody like yourself, a professional in this field, coming aboard, and I feel honored to have your friendship. If I need you for other cases, I know you're busy starting next month. You'll be taping for the show, but if I do need you, I know that you'll come back and
Absolutely.
visit.
Just give me a call, and happy to help anytime.
Excellent. And I'm going to also, if you don't mind, for 5 minutes, just look at the chat, because a lot of people have sent in super chats and have been sending in some questions. Now,
Sure.
We're still picking up that little bit of odd noise, so I'm going to mute you while I screen the chat. I don't know what it is on your end. Maybe it's the side of your face. I'm not sure, but it's not that bad. But maybe next time we'll just use a plug-in mic or something like that, or whatever.
Yeah,
I'll mail you one if I have to. So let's take a peek at the chat real quick. Catherine says, can I hire him independently? We just answered that. Yes, he is hireable independently, but it's got to be within the tri-state area, in the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut area. Black Rose says, thank you, Dan. Thank you, sir, and please return. Much appreciated. The King of Kings says, thank you so much, Dan. You got a lot of fans here, and a lot of people are saying, a couple of the ladies have said that you're very handsome, but he is taken. He is happily married. But thank you for that. I love you, blue lighting, says Ron. Says, who said that? Bianca, thank you. I'm wearing my retired. This was a gift that was given to me when I retired. So it's a retired shirt with the blue line flag going through it. And I have my blue line in the back, and I've got it here. As you can tell, I love the blue line flag. Retired Lieutenant Pete Pranzo, NYPD retired lieutenant. Thank you for your service, and thank you for supporting the stream. It looks like nobody's got questions for you. It's just they're all giving us accolades. So, okay, here comes one, just as I say it. I'd like to know his opinion regarding Candus' response to if there was a relationship between her and the 15-year-old. Does he think there was? I didn't have him look that far into it because he just looked at the interviews. So Dan won't know the answer to that question.
Right.
But if you ask me, because I really looked into that, I would say yes, there was something going on between Candus and Hunter. There's no question in my mind. People are going to crush me for that, but I don't care. You're asking a question, I'm giving you the answer. So red like K's, I don't doubt, I would bet my pension on it that there was something going on, maybe not at that moment, but in the past. based on her TikTok videos and some of the posts that she made and some of the posts that he made, I say yes to that. My answer is yes. And here is a straightforward question to you, and we're going to wrap this up. Rose says to Dan, do you think Don and Candus are lying?
Yes, I do. I believe that they're not being 100% truthful with respect to what has happened. They've leaked a lot of deception. I can't tell you exactly what they're lying about, but I can tell you that they're not being 100% truthful.
And I can expand on that. And this is not Dan speaking. This is me speaking. They're lying about their story, about what happened to Summer Wells, their daughter. So I will expand and piggyback on that. And this is my opinion, is that they are not being truthful. As I said from day one about what happened to Summer Wells, they know, either one or both know exactly what happened to her. And they're making up a story and they're trying to sell us a bag of shells. But I don't buy bags of shells from strange people. And I don't buy floodland in Florida either. So that's my take on it. I appreciate everybody coming and spending this 40, 50, 55 minutes. Dan, I owe you overtime. Guys, thank you so much to Dan Ribacoff from In-Depth Polygraphs. And you could see him after September 1st on the Steve Wilkos show. Am I saying that right? Wilkos?
Wilkos. Yeah.
Thank you. Steve Wilkos show. You could see him on there. He is the onboard polygraph examiner. And again, if you have any ideas for the show, send it to that show or send it to DutyRon.com and I'll forward it to the right people. Dan, thank you so much for being here. I will end the show as I always do. God bless the world. God bless the United States of America, and God bless each and every one of us here in the chat, and all victims of crime across the nation, across the globe, and their families. All victims of crime and the families, we send out prayers and positive vibes. Don't forget, Police Off the Cuff in 15 or 20 minutes. Go over to Police Off the Cuff. He's going to have EquiSearch director Dave Rader. He's going to be joining him at 9 o'clock Eastern. So go on over to Police Off the Cuff and check out his live stream. It's already created. Dan, thank you for being in here, and I will see you on the next one. Good night from
Thank
New
you,
York.
Pete. All the best.
We'll see you soon.